Всім добрий вечір.
On behalf of the brave.
On behalf of every father and every mother
Wings for freedom. On behalf of our warriors.
and paves the way for a new history.
Hello and welcome to Tochnyi Weekly, the show that gets behind the headlines to discuss the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine. We have an excellent broadcast for you today. It might look like we're a little light on the ground, but we've got a good show. First, I'll be presenting the news, as I always do. That'll be followed by the report from Germany to Ukraine on that topic. But then we have a special guest this week, which we're very happy to have. Parabellum will be appearing on the show. We're going to have a conversation about the Kursk offensive, and then we'll probably open it up to broader topics after that. So yeah, very happy to see chat here. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. If you have any questions throughout the stream, please feel free to write them in the chat. We'll do our best to address them in the Q&A section towards the end. And yeah, I think it's going to be a good time. So please, like the stream, subscribe to Tochnyi on YouTube. As mentioned, we do have a Blue Sky account. If you guys aren't into Twitter, understandable right now. We also do have a Twitter account. So yeah, just like follow us on social media, spread the word about us on like other social media platforms that we don't use a lot, and definitely get as many people watching the stream today as possible, because we've got an excellent guest we're really excited to talk to. So yeah, I think without any further delay from there, let's go ahead and jump into the news. These are the headlines for the Russian invasion of Ukraine as of November 17th, 2024. In the Kupiansk sector, Russian forces, disguised in uniforms mimicking those of Ukrainian troops, launched an operation to penetrate Ukrainian defensive positions. The incident was reported by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine via Telegram. The assault began in the afternoon and unfolded in 4 waves, with Russian forces deploying approximately 15 pieces of military equipment, including tanks, armored vehicles, and a mine-clearing vehicle. Ukrainian officials emphasized that some Russian soldiers wore uniforms similar to those of Ukrainian forces, a move they described as a violation of wartime laws and customs, classifying it as a war crime. Ukrainian defenders successfully repelled the attack, neutralizing all enemy armored vehicles and inflicting significant losses on enemy personnel. The General Staff credited the outcome to the effective collaboration and expertise of Ukraine's infantry, tank units, artillery teams, and drone operators. President Zelensky has announced that Ukraine is currently testing 4 distinct missile types as part of its ongoing missile program. The development is aimed at enhancing the nation's self-defense capabilities, particularly in response to threats such as the Shahed attack drones. In addition to missile advancements, according to the president, Ukraine has made significant progress with naval drones. These drones have transitioned from testing phases to active deployment, successfully targeting and destroying a substantial portion of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. The president also explained that earlier this year, Ukraine produced its first 100 missile units and plans to increase production in the coming year. On the night of November 9th, a Russian Mi-24 attack helicopter was destroyed at the Klin 5 airfield in Moscow Oblast, according to Ukraine's main intelligence directorate. The helicopter belonged to the 92nd Squadron of the 344th Center for Combat Application and Retraining of Army Aviation Flight Personnel of the Russian Armed Forces. That is a Russian combat unit name if I've ever heard one. HOR released a video purportedly showing the helicopter engulfed in flames, suggesting the incident was a targeted operation. You guys know I always keep you up to date on the great Mi-24 massacre. Recent intelligence reports from South Korea's National Intelligence Service and the U.S. State Department confirmed that over 10,000 North Korean troops have been deployed to Russia. Initially trained in eastern Russia, these forces have now moved to western Kursk Oblast and are actively participating in combat operations alongside Russian units. The development follows the ratification of a mutual defense treaty between North Korea and Russia, obligating both nations to provide military assistance if either is attacked. The treaty was signed in June 2024 and was ratified in November and signifies a deepening military alliance between Russia and North Korea. Also, for the first time, a North Korean M1989 Koksan self-propelled artillery system has been observed in Russia. The system was identified during transportation via rail in Krasnoyarsk based on geolocation from Twitter account Status6. Russian propagandist media circulated a photograph showcasing the equipment, which matches the distinctive profile and 5-roller track chassis of the Koksan howitzer. The Koksan is a long-range artillery system with a 170mm caliber, allowing for exceptional firing distances. Conventional shells are reported to reach up to 40 kilometers, while active-reactive ammunition extends ranges to approximately 60 kilometers. However, its firing rate is considered low, with a capacity of 1 or 2 shots every 5 minutes. The system outperforms all Russian cannon artillery in range except for the Soviet 203mm 2C7 Peon when using active-reactive shells. It weighs 40 tons and was initially revealed in a 1989 parade in North Korea's Koksan City. It's an advancement from the M1978 system from the 1970s, originally developed for deep artillery strikes on South Korea. And the system has a long combat history, having been deployed by Iran during the Iran-Iraq War. In January 1987, it was used for large-scale artillery operations, including rocket-assisted projectiles during the Kerbala 5 operation near Basra. The Koksan is considered a potential threat due to its range capabilities and potential counter-battery for systems such as the Panzer Howitzer, Caesar, and Bodana. Its appearance in Russian service also provides access to North Korea's extensive stockpile of unused 170mm ammunition. Roman Starovoyt, the former governor of Russia's Kursk region and current transport minister, has publicly confirmed that Russian soldiers looted homes in the Glushkovsky district after residents fled due to Ukraine's border incursion. Speaking at a meeting with locals on Thursday, Starovoyt acknowledged instances of theft involving both military personnel and civilians. His remarks were met with applause from the audience and followed discussions with law enforcement agencies addressing the crimes. He emphasized that measures are being taken to improve security in the area, revealing that stolen items were being transported deeper into Russia using delivery services. Meanwhile, Alexei Smirnov, the current governor, discussed the meeting on his Telegram channel but omitted any mention of the looting. Previously, on November 11th, Russian state media accused Ukrainian soldiers of looting homes in the village of Glushkova. However, the claim was swiftly debunked by military bloggers who noted that the village had never been under Ukrainian control. Following this, TASS amended their report, changing the location to a village in the Glushkovsky region and avoiding specific references to Glushkova. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense has officially approved the deployment of domestically developed Pernok remote-controlled weapon modules within its defense forces. The module is equipped with a 7.62mm machine gun and includes a control system unit featuring a battery and camera mounted on a turret. The Pernok module enhances the operational capabilities of Ukrainian forces by allowing remote engagements of targets, thereby reducing direct exposure to combat situations. In addition to the Pernok, Ukraine has been integrating other remote-controlled weapon systems, such as the Shabliak combat module, which has been authorized for use by the Army. So up next we have economy and aid. The European Commission has committed to providing Ukraine 4.1 billion euros through the Ukraine Facility Program, as confirmed by the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen on November 14th. The allocation is intended to help sustain Ukraine's government operations during the war with Russia. However, the transfer does require approval from the EU Council. The Ukraine Facility Program, launched earlier this year, outlines a framework for recovery, reconstruction, and modernization tasks to be undertaken by Ukraine. The European Commission mentioned recent Ukrainian reforms as a key factor in releasing the latest tranche of funds. Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal expressed optimism that the EU Council would approve the decision promptly. He noted that once approved, total EU support under this program for the year would reach 16.1 billion euros. The United States is preparing to deliver $7.1 billion in military assistance to Ukraine from the Pentagon stockpile before the conclusion of President Joe Biden's term. The commitment was reaffirmed by Deputy Pentagon spokesperson Sabrina Singh and was reported by the Pentagon's website. Singh emphasized the administration's dedication to utilizing the Presidential Drawdown Authority, or PDA, resources to transfer to Ukraine. She noted that the large aid packages are being developed and sent almost weekly, aligning with President Biden's directive to fully use the authority granted by Congress before his term ends. Singh also mentioned that to ensure both U.S. military readiness and that Ukraine's battlefield needs are being met, the Pentagon is actively replenishing its inventory while simultaneously supplying Ukraine with critical resources. Israel has provided Ukraine with the necessary technology and equipment to implement an advanced early warning system, with the project now reportedly nearing completion. Ukraine's ambassador to Israel, Yevhen Kornichuk, revealed this during the 5th Kyiv Jewish Forum. He noted that parts of the system, including three-dimensional radars manufactured in Israel, are already in use by the Ukrainian military. He emphasized the interconnected nature of challenges faced by Ukraine and Israel, pointing to shared adversaries such as Iran and its proxies, which are supported by Russia. He also discussed the regional and global implications of these alliances, mentioning that Russian-made weapons, many produced recently, have been utilized in wars in Lebanon. He speculated that the possibility of North Korean missiles appearing in the region, framing this as part of a broader axis of evil. In June 2023, Israeli Foreign Minister Eli Cohen disclosed that Ukrainian and Israeli military teams were collaborating to establish an air raid warning system for Ukraine, with initial operations taking place in Poland. The European Union, for the first time, has approved funding for joint defense procurement by its member states, marking a significant step in coordinated military collaboration. This funding under the European Defense Industry Reinforcement through Common Procurement Act, or EDIRPA, includes plans to acquire missiles and ammunition, with a portion allocated for Ukraine's defense needs. The initiative is part of 5 projects, each receiving around 60 million euros in EU funding. The projects cover procurement of the Mistral and Iris-T SLM air defense systems, 155mm ammunition, and armored personnel carriers. Collectively, the total value of these projects exceeds 11 billion euros and involves 20 EU member states. According to the European Commission, many of these projects aim to bolster Ukraine's defense capabilities against Russian aggression by supplying air and missile defense systems and ammunition. EDIRPA, established after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, serves as a short-term measure, it ends in 2025, to enhance joint defense procurement among EU nations and Norway. To continue this effort beyond 2025, the European Commission proposed the European Defense Industry Programme, or EDIP, in March, intending to replace EDIRPA as a long-term framework for collaborative defense initiatives. The Ukrainian 155th Mechanized Brigade, named after Anna of Kyiv, has successfully completed an intensive training program in France. Ukrainian Defense Minister Rustem Umerov confirmed that the brigade not only received high-quality general and specialized training, but was also fully equipped with modern French military hardware and systems. This training and equipment support were provided under the EU's military training mission for Ukraine. The brigade's training includes the use of VAB armored personnel carriers, AMX-10RC armored fighting vehicles, Caesar self-propelled howitzers, Mistral portable air defense systems, and Milan anti-tank guided missiles. French President Emmanuel Macron, who had earlier announced in October that 2,300 Ukrainian soldiers would be trained in France, along with the equipment they would use in combat. This initiative marks the first instance of an entire Ukrainian brigade being trained and equipped by France. In late October, President Volodymyr Zelensky announced further cooperation with France, which includes equipping another brigade as part of military aid. Zelensky also extended an invitation to other nations to join Ukraine in forming additional brigades, emphasizing a commitment to broader European defense. At least 3 Russian oil refineries may shut down next year as they struggle with a combination of declining exports, rising crude oil costs, and soaring interest rates, according to a Reuters report citing anonymous sources. The Tuapse refinery, a major facility owned by state-backed Rosneft, and 2 smaller independent refineries, Ilsky in Krasnodar and Novoshakhtinsky in Rostov, have faced significant financial challenges, including weak profit margins and reduced production levels. The Tuapse refinery, described as a relatively unsophisticated one, has reportedly halted operations multiple times this year. Meanwhile, the Ilsky and Novoshakhtinsky refineries have been operating at about half capacity for months. These facilities have also been targeted by repeated Ukrainian drone strikes, which further disrupt their operations. Compounding these issues, Western sanctions have forced Russian oil producers to sell fuel at discounted prices, adding to further financial pressures. Independent refiners are particularly vulnerable in Russia, lacking the support of large parent companies and facing steep borrowing costs amid Russia's high interest rates. Last month, the Russian central bank raised its key rate to a record 21% and is expected to increase it further in December. This has placed significant strain on smaller operators who are already grappling with the ruble's weakening and the surge in crude oil prices, which have reached 50,000 rubles per ton in October, which is around $499, which is far above the 35,000 rubles or $349 per ton needed for the companies to break even. These struggling refineries have reportedly sought government support to stay operational. However, industry insiders anticipate closures could occur as early as 2025. Major oil companies and the refineries mentioned in the report declined to comment. Russia's large and medium-sized refineries process about 5.5 million barrels of crude oil daily, with 2 million barrels allocated for export and the remainder consumed domestically. Smaller plants, which were not included in the report, are also expected to face challenges in the current economic climate. Austrian Chancellor Karl Nehammer has assured citizens that the country is well prepared to handle the cessation of natural gas supplies from Russia's Gazprom during the heating season. The announcement followed a notification from Gazprom to the Austrian energy company OMV regarding the suspension of gas deliveries. Nehammer emphasized that Austria had anticipated such a scenario since the onset of the war and highlighted that the country had taken significant steps to reduce their dependence on Russian energy. He assured the public that Austria's gas storage facilities are currently 93% full, sufficient to meet the country's annual demand, and that alternative sources of supply have been secured. The chancellor made it clear that Austria would not bow to what he described as blackmail by President Putin and had already informed the European Commission about the situation. The decision by Gazprom to halt supplies came after OMV refused to reimburse an arbitration fee of 230 million euros. OMV had earlier predicted this development and diversified its gas imports, incorporating non-Russian suppliers and expanding capacity to mitigate the impact. Nehammer pledged that Austrian households would remain warm through the winter and that no apartment would go without heating. Slovak state-owned energy supplier Slovenský plynárenský priemysel has initiated a short-term pilot agreement to purchase natural gas from Azerbaijan. So remember, I think last week I told you guys that Slovakia was saying there's no deal on the table. It seems that, again, I try to keep you guys updated whenever the position on this reverses. So it seems like within the scope of a week, we've reversed again. SPP CEO emphasized the importance of ensuring secure gas supplies for all customers, including industrial and residential users. To this end, the company has diversified its supply contracts, partnering with major energy firms such as BP, ExxonMobil, Shell, Eni, and RWE. These efforts have allowed SPP to maintain a safety cushion of around 150% of its customers' consumption needs, with plans to expand their reserve further. If Russian gas supplies through Ukraine are halted, the Turk Stream pipeline across the Black Sea may become a critical route for transporting gas from Russia or Azerbaijan to Slovakia. However, SPP estimates that replacing Russian supplies entirely would cost an additional 140 million euros annually, which would pose financial and logistical challenges. Slovakia, alongside Austria and Hungary, remain the most dependent on Russian energy imports in the European Union. Moscow significantly reduced pipeline gas flows to Europe in 2022, prompting many European countries to seek alternative suppliers. Negotiations between Azerbaijan, the EU, Moscow, and Kyiv are ongoing to secure Azeri gas transit after Ukrainian pipelines stopped handling Russian supplies. However, critics argue that increased Azerbaijani imports may not reduce Europe's dependence on Russian gas, as Azerbaijan itself has boosted its own purchases from Russia since the beginning of the war. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz urged Russian President Vladimir Putin to end the war in Ukraine and withdraw Russian troops during a 1-hour phone call on Friday, marking their first direct conversation in nearly 2 years. A German government spokesperson confirmed that Scholz called on Putin to negotiate with Ukraine to achieve a, quote, just and lasting peace. The chancellor had informed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky of the call in advance. Scholz has been advocating for a second peace conference on Ukraine that would include Russia, following an initial summit held in Switzerland in June, which excluded Kremlin participation. During the conversation, Scholz and Putin agreed to remain in contact. The German chancellor also raised concerns over reports of North Korean soldiers being deployed to Russia for combat against Ukraine. The dialogue follows the last exchange between the two leaders in December 2022, which occurred a few months after Russia launched the full-scale invasion. Niger's government is seeking investment from Russian companies in its uranium and broader natural resource sectors as relations with France continue to deteriorate. This shift comes in the wake of France's nuclear company Orano halting uranium production in Niger after the military junta, which assumed power in July 2023, revoked its permit for one of the world's largest uranium deposits. Niger's mining minister, Osume Abarchi, confirmed discussions with Russian firms interested in exploring and exploiting the country's resources, extending beyond uranium. Speaking to state-run Russian news agency RIA Novosti, Abarchi questioned the feasibility of allowing French companies to continue resource extraction, given France's refusal to recognize Niger's government. He cited statements from French leadership rejecting the legitimacy of the junta as grounds for re-evaluating French operations in Niger. The pivot away from France is part of a broader trend among West African nations rethinking their historical ties with their former colonial power. Many of these countries are now turning to Russia and other nations for strategic and economic partnerships. Niger's new leadership has also pledged to overhaul mining regulations for foreign companies, aiming to assert greater control over resource extraction. As the world's seventh largest uranium producer, its decision to seek alternative partners could have significant implications for global energy and mining markets. The foreign ministers of Ukraine and Japan, Andriy Sybiha and Takeshi Iwaya, have agreed to strengthen sanctions on Russia and pursue further steps towards easing visa requirements. The discussions took place during Iwaya's unannounced visit to Kyiv on November 16th, marking one of his first international trips since the formation of Japan's new government. Sybiha emphasized the importance of Japan's role in implementing Ukraine's victory plan and peace formula, and expressed gratitude for Japan's ongoing support. He noted that Japan has already imposed 26 rounds of sanctions targeting individuals and entities in Russia and Belarus since the invasion began, and he said both nations are committed to preventing efforts to bypass the measures. On visa liberalization, the ministers agreed to continue discussions aimed at fostering closer ties between their citizens. The Japanese foreign minister announced plans to host an international conference on demining in Ukraine next fall, and Japan aims to mobilize both public and private sectors to support these initiatives and will welcome Ukraine's first vice prime minister and minister of economy, Yulia Sverdenko, to Japan in December to further bilateral cooperation. Japan also included a tribute by Iwaya to the victims of the Russian occupation in Bucha. And my last news item for this week, in Abkhazia, a region that declared independence from Georgia and is supported by Russia, significant political unrest has emerged due to a proposed investment agreement with Moscow. Opposition leader Levan Mika has accused President Aslan Bjania of fleeing to a Russian military base amid escalating protests. Mika has stated that if Bjania does not re-establish contact by Monday, he will initiate impeachment proceedings through the Abkhazian parliament. In response, representatives for Bjania assert that he is simply visiting his hometown of Tamishi and dismiss claims of his departure to a military base. The contentious investment agreement has sparked widespread public dissent, with critics arguing that it disproportionately benefits Russian business interests at the expense of Abkhazia's autonomy. Despite the opposition to the agreement, protest leaders emphasize that their actions are not intended to undermine Abkhazia's relationship with Russia, but to address concerns over national sovereignty and economic independence. And it's a further indication that Russia's efforts to maintain complete military control and obedience over the administration of Abkhazia is starting to slip a bit, probably due to Russia's increased attention in Ukraine and elsewhere. So that wraps up the major news items concerning the Russian invasion of Ukraine for November 17th, 2024. And now we will move to the next segment.
Yeah, that would be me. Hello, guys. As always, I will now present the most important news from Germany regarding Ukraine. On Monday, Rheinmetall announced that they have been contracted by the German government to supply Ukraine with advanced reconnaissance capabilities in form of satellite imagery. Thanks to a cooperation with ICI, Rheinmetall is able to provide Ukraine with satellite images from ICI's SAR satellites, which offer the great advantage that they can generate high-resolution images regardless of weather conditions or time of day. In their press release, they also mentioned an interesting detail, namely that deliveries are already ongoing since the last months. On the same day, the German publication Loyal stated that Germany will contribute 10 million euros to the joint fund of the Capability Coalition drones, which is led by Latvia and the UK. This was confirmed by a spokesperson by the German Ministry of Defense. From the joint fund, the UK has placed a tender for FPV drones and interceptor drones. I reported on Tuesday that the German city of Leipzig is currently carrying out a delivery of a crane truck worth 63,000 euros to its Ukrainian twin city, Kiev. The truck is perfectly suitable for rescue work and cleaning debris, which was specifically requested by the Ukrainian capital. Last but not least, the German embassy, if the slide would load, that would be perfect. No, thank you. Last but not least, the German embassy in Ukraine has made public on Thursday that Germany recently handed over 2 special trucks to demining units or teams of the National Police of Ukraine to support the demining efforts. And since we haven't had a video of the week for a few weeks now, and Joseph was always complaining, and considering the massive attacks with drones and cruise missiles and ballistic missiles by Russia last night, I decided to show a part of my Gepard/Cheetah archive this week. Since 2022, the German-delivered Gepard Spark has become an integral part of the Ukrainian air defense, which is particularly efficient when engaging loitering munition. So far, Germany has delivered a total of 52 Gepard Sparks and 3 Cheetah Sparks, with 12 more to come until the end of next year. In addition to the delivery of vehicles, Rheinmetall also established a new production line for ammunition financed by the German government, which ensures a steady supply until around 2026. And yeah, that's it for my segment. Back to you, Joseph.
Okay, so I think we are now going to turn it over to Erland, who I think is very excited to introduce our guest. Mr. Erland, over to you.
Well, guest hasn't showed up yet, so Daniele is going to do a stopgap until Mirko is with us. So thank you, Daniele.
Who are all these people, Erland?
Yeah, so by the way, we filled the panel with people from the basement, and I guess I'll take some time to introduce them later. But
Thank you
Daniele
for
wanted
letting
to
me out of the
say
basement,
something.
Andrew.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Andrew is happy with letting them out from the basement, to be honest, but we'll see.
They're still chained.
The chains are not loosened. Okay. Well, Daniele, how are you? I've heard that there's some good news that you've been brewing on. Oh, Daniele is muted.
Or maybe he doesn't have good news for you.
I hope he does.
Good evening.
There.
Sorry, I had to prepare a very long coffee for tonight, so I probably missed a bit.
I just said that you said you have some good news for us that you've been brewing on for a while.
Oh yes, so these news essentially are already documented widely in one of my posts, but also by different announcements from UK government, BAE, and also Rheinmetall, because there is also something that boiled under the curtain during these last few weeks and months. So I wrote a thread on these, and just to try to condensate all the different communication that came out from mainly MOD and the UK government. So the first news that we can trace back was around the 10th of April. There was a communication regarding the need to restart the production of barrel for howitzer light gun L118, 119, and AS-90, because one of the issues is that these artillery pieces were donated in mass, also spare part, but essentially it came out pretty much immediately obvious that without the restart of and the production of barrels and other spare parts, these items would become unusable, not in short time, but at some point. And because this is something that UK feel very bad, not only for Ukraine, but also for itself, there was this decision to restart the production of large caliber barrels. And on this, MOD has been pretty much vague, because there were a series of not press release but announcement published on their website, where they speak at the beginning, as I said, specifically on AS90L118. Then they speak about gun barrel, and then again large caliber, and then artillery. So these two essentially say that there was kind of work behind. And if you scroll down the thread, what happened is that after a while, in this summer, late this summer, was announced that the MOD has selected the Sheffield Forge Masters, which who doesn't know, is a very large forging company, which from 2021 is owned by the MOD, which produce a very large component for UK Army, from pieces for armor, but mainly for the shipbuilding industry. And they were tasked to restart the production of gun barrels. But as many knows, restarting the production of gun barrels is not something that you can do just because you can forge large chunk of material. You need the blueprints, you need the license. So it was pretty obvious that Forge Masters was going to do not a side job, but a more technical job for someone else, in particular BAE System. And in fact, in a rapid succession, essentially you have always the government and Forge Master announcing that Forge Master was mainly involved in the production of British steel for the production of gun barrels, which is a very important news, because UK steel production is at its lowest, is not in a very good shape by any mean. And the fact that Forge Master now can work on these is a very important thing for the UK economy, because these guarantee a good stream of material for anyone who want to build this type of component in UK. In particular, this is BAE System, which now recently has, recently, just yesterday or the day before, announced that they finally started to work on the forging infrastructure. So in reality, they announced only the fact that they have these new factory is located in Sheffield, in a non very well disclosed location. But they released a couple of images. One is the outside, which show you this a very large complex, and the second one is the interior. You can see if you scroll down, I think I put 3 pictures. This is about the closure. Yeah, this one. So this is what looks like true half of a radial forging machine. So these are the foundation where potentially the radial forging machine will go. And
I just
yep.
want to note that they're digging out the concrete there, and I guess the reason is that they need to place some machinery that needs a little bit bigger slab of concrete than what was there originally. Yeah.
Yes, that's essentially is a preliminary preparatory work. So what they are going to do here, they are going to dig out the soil. You can see that essentially probably is a logistic. If you there are other images, it looks like something built for something else, in my opinion. But they probably bought in order to make it very rapidly adaptable. Is a very large complex, and so they will probably place a radial forging machine there, and you can see that there are essentially 2 sides, because when you forge barrels, you need, most of the time you need 2 manipulators, one from one side and one from the others, and in the center you have these 4 hammer that at very high speed they just squish the material around a mandrel, which can be rifled or not. And so this is a very good news, because this plant, of course, is going to produce also M777 barrels, and this is also a contract that I think BAE has with different countries. So they restarted this production. And aside of these, there is also Rheinmetall that signed, and on this Gao can talk a bit, because I discovered just while I was trying to understand what Rheinmetall was doing. But Rheinmetall is supposed to open potentially in Sheffield, because they are going to use the same steel from Forge Masters, another site with at least 400 employee for the production of gun barrel. Again, potentially can be other artillery or main battle tank, but probably the other artillery from what I can read. And this is very good. First of all, for Forge Master, which will have a lot of request of material, so they will be able to work on request, and so it's a good thing economically, but also for Ukraine is amazing, because this means that we have now at least 2 sites in UK that can produce gun barrel. One, of course, for systems that are a bit older, like ACE-90 and light guns, and another one that probably will work on more new system. So it's all good, especially when you think that it required a war to have at least 2 radial forging machine in Britain after Cold War. I mean, honestly, I still can't believe that this is happening, and it's also happening at very good speed. Of course, this type of factory are less complex than, for example, an artillery munition production site. So this is the good news, essentially, for now. If there is any question, very happy to reply.
Well, I guess first question I have is how long do you think it takes until they can actually output something?
Oh, I can tell you that is very, very quick, because if you look, even BAE has been very optimistic, because they say within 2025 it will start to produce barrels. So is at this point the biggest issues is make sure that the machine produced is going to be qualified. So they need to do a series of tests which take times. You need to ensure that the concrete and all the foundation are good enough. Now, it's not as a very large press where you may have big issues. The radial forging machine are not that heavy, it's not that critical, but they will probably need some time, physical time, to do everything properly. But they can do within 2025. It's a completely reasonable timing. And the other big point is that this gives time to Forge Master to adapt, because Forge Master is also building a completely new site for heat treatment and other things which will be important for this production line. But in general, everything looks like a very well streamed. So it's very should be in time. For Rheinmetall it will take a bit longer. They say 2027. Hello, Mirko.
Hi, everybody.
So 2027 for the Rheinmetall plant, and 2025 for BAE. But BAE started earlier, so this is also why it's going to take less.